Hi there, my name is Mr. Doyle and this is A Great Undertaking. On this channel I am exclusively discussing the works of Stephen King and their countless adaptations in the chronological order of the original book or story's publication. In this series I will be focusing on Stephen King's second novel, Salem's Lot, and of course all of the various adaptations, variations, and incarnations of the story will be covered in this series as well. There are 5 videos in this series. This video, which is for the 1975 novel, as well as the illustrated edition of the novel, which was published in 2005. Another for the short stories Jerusalem's Lot and One for the Road, which were included in the 1978 collection of short stories entitled Night Shift. One for the 1979 TV miniseries. Another for the 1987 movie, A Return to Salem's Lot, which was intended to be the sequel to the original TV series. And finally, a video for the 2004 two-part TV miniseries remake. There should be 6 videos in this series, as there is also a collection of graphic stories entitled The Secretary of Dreams, which features an interpretation of the short story Jerusalem's Lot. However, the collection saw an extremely limited release, and finding a copy for sale under $500 has proven difficult. It's just a little over budget for this particular fella. When I did the Carrie series, I teased that a clip in which I got a bucket of pig's blood dumped on my head was hiding somewhere within the 7 videos, in hopes it would encourage people to watch all the Carrie videos in order to find that particular clip. If you haven't yet checked out the Carrie series, you can find the link to the playlist in the description of this video. I haven't yet figured out what outrageous thing I will do to shamelessly bait viewers during the Salem's Lot series, but whatever stunt I have decided on, it's hiding somewhere among the 5 related videos and will likely contain blood in some gratuitous fashion. Alright, Salem's Lot is, spoiler alert! It's about vampires. Salem's Lot is about vampires, so I'm going to be rocking my best Count Dracula attire for the series. Fangs and all. Good evening. You've heard of dad jokes, but in this series we're going to do Vlad jokes. Get it? Cause Stoker named Dracula after Vlad the Impaler or Vlad Dracul, and since this is a series about Salem's Lot, which was inspired by Stoker's Dracula, something we'll get into shortly, and dad jokes are bad jokes. Anyway,
Vlad joke.
Why are vampires so unpopular? Because they're a pain in the neck. Synopsis as provided within the novel. The town knew darkness, and the awful heavy silence of terrifying images grotesquely dancing in and out of the shadows, and stark white faces, huge empty eyes, and long gnarled hands that reached out with lustful insistence. These teeth make it really hard to say S's. And the paralyzing fear of a diabolical corruption and a hideous peril more dreadful than death. But no one living in Salem's Lot. Salem's Lot dared talk about the high, sweet, evil laughter of a child and the sucking sounds. The sucking sounds. Oh boy. I don't know if I'm going to make it through 5 videos with these fangs in. History and inspiration. Salem's Lot was the second of King's novels to see publication in 1975. Hot on the heels of Carrie, Salem's Lot was a decidedly different brand of horror. I was unable to find any information regarding the number of copies sold in its first year, but suffice it to say the book did well and is still regarded as a favorite among King fans, or constant readers, as the author fondly refers to them, and a favorite of King himself. By King's own admission, Bram Stoker's infamous portrayal of Dracula was an integral part of Salem's Lot. He recalls that his mother brought the book home from the library with him when he was still very young and not without apprehension. Years later, King mused over what would happen if Drac were to relocate from Transylvania to a small rural New England town and methodically worked in the darkness to take out the town's residents one by one. Rural communities of the 1970s were effectively cut off from the wider world and would have been easy targets for such an incursion. He marveled at just how easy it would be for the old bloodsucker to invade a remote village unnoticed, turning the unsuspecting townspeople into his undead minions, and all the while, few people would suspect a thing, and those who did wouldn't know what was happening until it was too late. In addition to Stoker, King credits the portrayal of vampires in the EC comics that he discovered as a child to have been equally influential regarding his representation of vampires in Salem's Lot. He found that the comic book vamps were more crude, animalistic, and gruesome than Stoker's aristocratic, gentlemanly representation of the dark creatures. It was by combining these two depictions that King crafted his spin on the mythic monsters of his childhood. The overview. Much like its predecessor, Carrie, Salem's Lot uses a series of newspaper articles in tandem with other glimpses of what is to come in order to convey the reader that some bad business is on the horizon, or rather that it has already happened and now we must return to the scene of the crime to see how it all played out. Stoker had an influence on not only the story itself, but also how the story was to be told, as similar methods were used in the telling of Dracula. While dramatic irony is at play during the telling of Salem's Lot, it is certainly more vague and shrouded in mystery than Carrie. King is more conservative with what he is willing to give away this time around. This story is one of coping with and struggling to overcome personal tragedy, but more broadly, it is the telling of the classic tale as old as time, the battle of good versus evil, the light overcoming the darkness, the perseverance of the human spirit in the face of heinous malevolence, the pure of heart be set against what lurks within the shadows of wickedness, exalting and glorifying the righteousness of man in order to destroy the contemptible demons that walk among us while the fate of mankind hangs in the balance. Can I get an amen? Amen. Can I get a hallelujah? Hallelujah. Can I get a whoop whoop? Can I get a whoop whoop? Whoa. Sorry about that. Sometimes the spirit takes hold and causes 90s era Jay-Z to inhabit my body and speak through me. The Lord works in mysterious ways, you know? Anyway, there are a number of classic vampire tropes, standard rules, and bloodsucker mythos guidelines that King stringently adheres to. While he alters the setting, King remains true to the lore and to the definitive standards of vampire tales, and never strays far from the time-honored traditions while adapting to a more modern world. The protagonists. Ben Mears is the novel's main protagonist. Mears is a writer who travels to Salem's Lot in search of answers regarding a childhood memory that has haunted him for years, as well as a means of escaping a more recent tragic event that he is still trying to recover from. He is essentially trying to exorcise the demons of his past and reconcile the life he has been forced to leave behind with the uncertainty of his future. Mears gets more than he bargains for, though, when he finds himself embroiled in what is perhaps the worst ever case of being in the right place at the wrong time. There are a number of secondary protagonists, or what is known as deuteragonists, in this story. These supporting characters make up Mears' ragtag crew of believers and vampire fighters, when the rest of the town either ignores or dismisses the signs that something is terribly wrong in the lot. These are the characters that are willing and able to not only take notice but to take action. First among them is Susan Norton, a young, charismatic 20-something and love interest to Mears. Additionally, there is Father Donald Callahan, an alcoholic Catholic priest who is struggling to hold on to his fraying faith. Mark Petrie, a resourceful and intelligent young man who is among the first believers. And finally, Matthew Burke, who is an aging high school teacher that bonds with Mears and is eventually convinced of the forthcoming danger that has arrived in the lot. The antagonists. Salem's Lot has two inextricable antagonists, each of whom would ultimately be ineffectual without the other. Their dark partnership allows them to set up shop and begin their covert infiltration of the lot under the guise of a seemingly legitimate business venture. Richard Straker functions as the face and the voice of the partnership. Straker is human, and while he is not undead, he is a foreboding and unusual man, especially to the residents of Salem's Lot. The rumor mill churns, as is so often the case in any small town where anything of note happening is a rare occurrence, and the townspeople speculate about Straker and his business partner, Kurt Barlow. Some believe that the two may be romantically involved, which, in their small town and in the era the story takes place, is nothing short of scandalous. Others assume Straker is just eccentric and a fancy fellow whose cultured foreign ways are beyond their means of comprehension. The story's main villain is one Kurt Barlow. Barlow is the muscle of the operation and the true threat to the citizens of the town. Barlow is Straker's master and the orchestrator of the events that lead to the gradual, practically imperceptible invasion of the lot. As a creature of the night, Barlow is reliant on Straker to lay the groundwork for his insidious plan as he lurks in the shadows and spreads his disease in relative silence. The Marston House. There is one final antagonist in this novel, but I felt it needed its own special segment in this video. It's not a man, it's not a monster, it's not a person or a thing, but rather it is a place. That place is known as the Marston House. King provides such intimate detail about the house and its history that it feels like a character in the story. He brings the house to life with painstaking detail, and the result is that the Marston House seems to breathe and become a living thing that is just as menacing and threatening as Barlow and Straker. Ben Mears has a history of sorts with the house, and it is the house, at least in part, that lures him back to the lot, even after nearly 3 decades. The house's namesake, Hubert Marston, is also an integral part of Ben's nightmarish memories, which have followed him well into adulthood. Hubert Marston met a terrible fate within the house. Hubert Marston met a terrible fate within the house, and he wasn't the only one. Although King doesn't come right out and tell us that the Marston House is haunted, we understand that the house is a place of darkness and tragedy. It is a site that has been inhabited by a corruption so evil that it has imprinted itself upon the foundation and has been absorbed by the very structure. It has all the hallmarks of what makes a haunted house haunted. It is widely believed that places of great misfortune and peril retain the tortured souls of those whose lives have been taken in murderous or contemptuous acts. Ben Mears, while in conversation with Susan Norton, references The Haunting of Hill House, a 1959 novel by Shirley Jackson, which he compares to the Marston House after having researched the house's sordid history. While Barlow and Straker are undoubtedly formidable foes, the Marston House is, at least for this constant reader, the more menacing of the three. Salem's Lot, Illustrated Edition. I was unaware of this illustrated edition's existence until I came across it while researching for the original novel. Tracking down a copy was much easier and more affordable than I had anticipated, so I ordered it right away. The illustrations were done by Jerry Uelsman, and while the images are fantastic, I have to say I was a little disappointed for a few reasons. First of all, these aren't really illustrations, they're photographs, some of which have been either digitally manipulated or created using darkroom techniques, both of which are admirable skills in my opinion, but they're not what I would consider illustrations. Second, there are so few of them. There are only 8 images in the entire book, which is nearly 500 pages. And third, most of the photographs don't seem relevant to the content of the story. There's really only one image that made sense in the context of the story, but otherwise they were just cool, creepy images seemingly placed at random throughout the novel. I didn't really look into the details regarding the illustrated edition prior to buying it, so I don't really know what I was expecting, but I guess I just wanted more, and I expected the images to at least represent parts of the story. I want to reiterate, the images that are presented are really great. They're creepy, the composition is excellent, but there just aren't very many images, and what there is rarely seems relevant to the story. This edition also includes the short stories Jerusalem's Lot and One for the Road, both of which were included in the collection of short stories Night Shift. The real bonus here, though, is the 50 pages of previously unpublished, deleted scenes from the original Salem's Lot novel. The deleted scenes may not provide any shocking revelations, but they are enjoyable and in most cases expand upon scenes that were in the novel. Final thoughts. Salem's Lot was a strong sophomore effort by King. The book is a great read, and it's one I've read at least 4 times myself. I highly recommend checking it out if you haven't yet had the opportunity. I would also recommend reading Stoker's Dracula in order to fully understand how the novel inspired King, and so you can see the similarities and differences for yourself. Alright, that's all for the novel. Check out the rest of the Salem's Lot series, as well as all 7 videos in the Carrie series. In the next video, we will be discussing the 2 aforementioned short stories, Jerusalem's Lot and One for the Road. While both stories are Salem's Lot-centric, they couldn't be more different, and as such are a testament to King's versatility as a writer, even in the early stages of his decades-long career. Okay. Goodbye. Be sure to click like and subscribe to the channel for my continued analysis of all things Stephen King, pretty please with blood and guts on top. My name is Mr. Doyle, and this has been a great undertaking.